Mm-hmm. Hey everyone, surprise emergency belated idle banter hangout podcast stream thing.
I like to think of it as a bonus banter.
A bonus banter, but they didn't get the first one.
To be fair, we didn't really get the first one either.
How's everyone doing?
Hi.
I'm doing better than I was.
Hey.
Which I think it gets to the point of this whole thing. But how's everyone else? How are we all feeling? Are we
doing good? I'm doing good. I'm trying to murder my video essay once and for all.
Hell yeah. Our last session, I had just gotten my flu and COVID vaccines, and I was struggling to exist.
Oh.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of that going around.
Yeah.
Everyone was full of drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess that just gets to it, which I guess I can just summarize a few of the things that happened. So, hi everyone, thanks for watching Idle Banter. Thanks for watching Cave Escape. We here at Noel Playing Games love and cherish your attention and mind share and all those content-y things. And that's part of the reason why we're doing this today. Normally there would be, I believe, an Idle Banter uploaded today, but we didn't have one because, to put it very frankly and bluntly, I kind of fucked up last session pretty bad, and there's a lot of reasons why that happened, and I'll kind of cover it in a bit, but long story short, the reason why we're doing this and the reason why we are kind of working to roll back some of the things that happened that session, it's all in service of making sure that we make a good show for you all and make sure that your time is respected too. And obviously we want everyone in the cast to feel like that there's a reason that we play together and why we trust each other and come to the table to role play together, because that takes a lot of trust. And I kind of worried that a little bit of that trust was broken. So I really wanted to make sure that we were ready to move forward and kind of go over everything that happened in what would have been the original episode 8 of Cape Escape 2. But yeah, let's talk about that. So starting off, I do want to say, just for everyone watching, I'm very sorry for the way that happened, and I'm very sorry to my co-hosts and the rest of the players at the table, and most certainly to Ka, for how everything went down in episode 8. But to kind of give a background on how it happened and what happened, for those of you who might not know, we record 2 episodes basically every single session, right? The first half of the session before the break becomes the first episode, and then the second half after the break becomes the second. And we usually take about a 10-minute roughly break in between those 2 halves, just an intermission where, we get up, we pee, we have a little conversation, we record some things. And during last week's session, I hadn't really prepared myself for a pretty big change to my medication. That might sound a little bit non sequitur, but basically, I take my sleep and my anxiety meds in the break because they're usually supposed to take about an hour to kick in, which means by the time we end the show and do a little bit of idle banter, I'm ready to just walk out of my office and go to sleep. But recently, my medications have slightly changed. I'm healthy and I'm fine and stuff, but I have an anxiety disorder. I have a sleep disorder. And I just kind of have to take this stuff. That we joke on our shows and in other podcasts and stuff about how I get 4 hours of sleep on a good night. but that's not really a joke. That's like a serious condition that I've lived with my whole life. And so I kind of need this stuff to function. And I wasn't really prepared for it to hit me the way that it did. So we had this amazing first half of a session, one of the best episodes I think we've ever recorded. The reception to it has been incredible. Amazing character moments, and we'll go over those later like we would for a typical idle banter. But it was just stellar all around. And I think people can kind of attest, like I was totally fine. I wasn't like going crazy drinking or anything. Like there really wasn't too many extenuating factors that happened here. I had one drink before the start of the show, as I typically do. We usually record a little bit for like 5 minutes before the start of the show, as we're all just like saying hi to each other and stuff. So I had like a basically like an Irish coffee espresso martini type thing before the start of the show. We played the game for an hour and a half, 2 hours-ish, which is generally long enough for me to be able to take my meds and be fine. I know you're not really supposed to mix meds with alcohol, but in these particular instances, I'm on a full stomach and it's been 2 hours and, you know, I'm safe enough to drive, so whatever, that sort of thing, right? Just not really thinking much about it. I'm sitting in an office. I'm okay. This time, though, I hadn't had anything to eat for like the entire day, so I was on an empty stomach. And I got up and I went to the bathroom and I took my anti-anxiety meds and I took my sleep meds, walked back to my desk, sat down, felt a little jazzed, a little tipsy, but was totally fine. You know, whatever. Oh, my meds, they're fine. 10 minutes later, roughly, we're getting to, I believe his name was Craven Barochi. I get to an NPC character's introduction, and I, from there, that point forward, remember absolutely nothing of the night. I essentially roofied myself live on stream. And that sucked really bad. And I think the last thing I really clearly remember, there were two things running through my head. One was, I feel kind of funny. That's weird, but I have to stay awake. I have to like, I think if my sleeping meds are kicking in, like I've handled this before. I've like taken my sleep meds a little bit too early in the past. Like it's fine. I can just kind of power through it until the show's done. And the second thought that was like overwhelmingly looping in my brain was, oh no, what if we don't make it to time for the episode? We don't run on a very strict timeline, but it generally is better for us if we have like an hour-long episode to post. We don't always hit that mark, but for some reason, that was like very central to what I was thinking about right before my memory kind of cuts out. And I don't know if anyone here has had to take like Ambien before or has ever been on anti-anxiety meds, but when you get in that state, you lose all context and like short-term memory. And I basically spent the rest of the session I was asleep at multiple points. I remember at one point, Keith pinged me like in like a DM, and the sound of that distracted me enough to realize I had like dozed off with a character sheet blocking the screen. So like 15 minutes of the stream was just unusable because I just had a character sheet blocking all the character art. And you know, that's just explaining a little bit of what happened.
It was directly in a reveal, which we will not spoil, but it was like the end of the episode cliffhanger and the stream couldn't see it. You're like, oh.
Yeah, I had absolutely no idea what happened and what was going on there. I was dozing in and off, struggling really hard to just like correlate what was happening. And I know some people said they thought it was really funny and they thought that I was just like really good at acting. And there's one person put a comment in, it was very sweet of them, but they were like, I thought it was like pitch perfect black comedy. But I want to stress on the audience, what was happening to me was extremely real. and very scary when I woke up the next morning and had a bunch of messages from people asking me if I was okay, and had a bunch of messages from people saying, you know, things that I just didn't remember ever. Like, they were like replying to things that I didn't remember saying. And thankfully, I recorded footage, but I listened back over it and I looked at it, and like, thank God, like, I didn't say anything horrible. It's not like we pulled the episode because I was like disavowing entire ethnic groups or something like crazy like that.
The session was just this evolving realization of like, okay, this is going on for a while. Does Toaster not know this?
He's really committed to the hypnosis bit.
Yeah, like, does Toaster not get that this bit's kind of wearing thin? And then being like, okay, we're all prodding him, like, maybe slow it down, give some air to the room, and like, oh, he doesn't get it. He doesn't get the feedback either.
Right, like,
it just kind of was this dawning realization.
It started somewhat organically in that Keaton was being like stressed out in the elevator based on what she had seen. Said that lended itself to a moment where she got hypnotized to a sister, and so it's kind of like the way it started actually made sense.
Yeah,
but it was just this.
It was the most confusing possible way for this to have happened, because your character was experiencing almost the same scenario in the game. So it just read as a bit for a while, and we're like,
wait, until it slowly evolved into we're just like, like, wait, there's something wrong actually.
Yeah, and I feel really bad about that. And I know I read back through the chat log, because in the privatized VOD I can see the chat. And like, there were some people in there that were concerned, but like, again, I can't really comment on like what was going through my head at the time, because I just it's all blacked out. It's all gone. But my guess is I wasn't feeling very good, and I was trying, and I knew, in the way that you know that you're drunk when you're drunk, I knew something was up, but I couldn't stop it. So I probably played into it. Like, that's what my instinct would be right now if something like that were happening, right? Is like, oh, I'm like slurring my speech. This is great. Like, let's just play into that. So I'm sure I had the best of intentions. Like, when this happens, it's not like you're completely a different person, right? Like, your instincts still kind of kick in. You're still just operating as you would. It's just you don't have any memory or context, and you forget everything every 5 minutes. So I just fucking fell off a cliff, and I feel really bad about that, because this show is the most fucking important thing I do in my life. I think that this thing is seriously, creatively, the most important thing I've ever done, and like, I never would have wanted this to happen. And so going back over all this footage and hearing me do just like the most cringeworthy read the room bit of all time, and like, thank God again that I didn't like go off on some crazy conspiracy theory rant, like with no filter, like that sort of shit. Not that I believe that sort of thing.
We're still protected from all of your authentic beliefs.
Yeah, exactly. You're all protected from my deep dark secrets that I've been hiding this whole time. But thank God it wasn't that sort of situation. But still, like, I rewatched the footage and I had to sit there and just think, like, God, this horrible thing that just fucking happened to me completely by accident is going to live on the internet forever. And like, people are going to say awful shit about me. There's 2 years from now, when we have like one super successful season, someone's going to come back and rewatch the VODs, be super pissed, and leave a comment about how I'm some crazy drug addicted, went on a cocaine binge during Cape Escape. And like, one, the show doesn't deserve that. 2, you guys don't deserve that. 3, the audience didn't deserve to see that. And like, no matter how funny and quirky it was in the moment, it just sucked to just suddenly wake up the next morning and be like, fuck, like, this horrible, worst version of myself making all of these choices that I wouldn't have made for my character if I had a brain to use in the moment is just there. And like, I didn't have the faculties to stop that from happening.
And I think that gets to why we decided to redo it, really, because or because we didn't know how to react to it. I mean, this caught us all completely off guard. Like we didn't know. I DM'd Keith at one point and be like, is Toaster wasted? But like I kind of knew, not like how you described it, how sudden it was after the break. It's like, no. Toaster would have had to have like taken like multiple shots like during break, like you know, like
no,
you would have
I
had
literally
to have
asked Toaster like, did you take shots like during the break?
Right.
Like I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean,
it was so stark that I couldn't explain.
No one just gets drunk that fast, you know. So like we like something was clearly wrong, but we didn't really know what was going on. But the aftermath of it was just us being kind of confused, and in the day after, to kind of explain to the audience, we were initially thinking of like chopping the episode up to see if there's like bits we could like just kind of cut out a lot of what happened, but like that I don't think that was like tenable at all, really.
Yeah.
Yep.
And like I feel
just
bad
thinking about it, didn't spend 6 hours doing it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel bad because Keith really put a lot of work in trying to save it, and thankfully, like this is crazy, but like the reason why I was able to go back over the footage was because I record locally on my side, even though my VODs aren't the ones that get uploaded. But like, so I can also hear my audio when I'm like muted on Discord, and I'm like straight up like snoring in parts of it on my mic where I just like passed out on fucking stream, and like that shit sucks. Like it just really sucked to go through. And again, it's not just about me, it's about like the quality of the show, right? Like Keith went over the footage to try and cut as much of it down as possible, and I was like, just cut everything, Keaton. Like it doesn't, we covered 15 minutes of content ground in an hour of session. Like that's just embarrassing for us. And on top of that, like I sent Keith my Discord audio, which I have separated out, so he could even just try to splice in a version of the show that just doesn't have my audio track on it, and it just didn't work. And so we were like, all right, we need to find a way to roll back the clock. And I don't want to spoil what's going to happen for the next session, but I do think people are going to be very excited and really like the logic we have for how this is going to play out, because it will have a lore reason, and we're going to make sure that it's one of the best episodes that you guys get.
Spoilers.
Sorry, it's going to be really good.
Yeah, no, the solutions you guys, I was on board with like, again, because we were coming from it like, oh, what can we salvage from the episode? But the more I thought about it, I was like, no, fuck, like it's like what you were saying, like you had this embarrassing medical event happen live, and for that to like have to live on the show, that's when I sort of pushed for a redo. I was like, I think we should redo it.
Yeah,
but it was everyone else in the group who actually like thought of like in lore reasons, or like just kind of planning on how we can kind of reboot. You guys came up with good solutions, so again, I'm not going to say anything else about that, but people will find out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So.
And importantly, it is not important to have seen the lost content. That is not going to be load bearing in your enjoyment of where we go from
load bearing.
Yeah, we can consider this a fun, quirky live adventure. And for those of you who watched this now lost media, like jokes. Treasure that. Feel free to meme it. Some people reached out to me afterward and were like sending me fan art of like drunk girl Keaton, and like then afterward when people saw the apology or the announcement video, were like, oh my god, I'm so sorry, I like didn't mean to put you on the spot. None of you put me on the spot. As cringe as I think what happened was, and that's really the worst of it, thank fucking god, is the worst thing that happened was that it was just a little cringe. Feel free to meme it and make fan art of it, and like I'm sure there's gonna be fan art down the line of like a really big reveal, and someone's just gonna put like a Forbes magazine with sandals over it, like, you know, like that sort of shit. Like that's totally fine. It's very funny to me that stuff happened.
People keep quoting like gay husbands.
Fuck
you.
Which is just the most insane thing that it could possibly have come from this. You know,
I appreciate that people like the memes, and there was funny moments. Like I was editing through that, and it was simultaneously both like, this is really good and I got to keep it, and other moments of like, oh Jesus Christ, please stop, back and forth continuously. And it's like there's a lot of comedy that came from it. It's just that there's like a time and place for that.
Diegetic enough.
The problem is that if you think about where we are on the narrative, the last episode literally ends on the reveal of Melvin, which is like a thing that's been built up to the entire season. And we're literally in the place where Javier was tortured, and Jet and Snapper have both been looking for Melvin for different reasons. And this is like an emotional climax for several characters, like a really big, serious, important moment. Not like serious as like it has to not be funny, but like there's like stuff to mine there. And with all due respect, Keaton has like the least connection to anything in that scene.
Completely.
So
Keaton and Dakota are just kind of there.
Yeah, so when Keaton ends up functionally filibustering the entire session because you can't remember if they've already said jokes before and so on, like it starts to just like it got to a part where it's just like, oh, no one has like room. So the scenes that should really be happening just kind of aren't. And it's like it's best to just do it over because we kind of didn't get to it the first time.
And say like just kind of like to the point of everything that's been said, I do really appreciate that like immediately afterwards, like we took time as a group to acknowledge it and discuss how to move forward. I just want to say I really appreciate that. Like it's a nice change of pace, and I'm glad that it just wasn't like, okay, well, let's ignore it and move on.
We didn't like fume about it and then not solve the problem and then let it become a bigger problem and then make it go live and then complain about that for the next few years as a simmering resentment like most groups of people do.
Yeah. I mean, I felt...
That's oddly specific.
It's not that specific. It's like 6 life experiences at least.
Aww.
I just felt really sad about it. Like and again, this isn't a pity toaster party. I did a cringe thing when I was out of my mind, and I'm totally okay now. I saw some people in chat wondering like, oh, like, are you going to do something about your meds? I want to be super clear. Like my meds themselves did what they were supposed to do. Like the problem is I was not prepared for them to hit me as hard, probably in combination with the drink that I had before the session. It was a freak accident. I am gonna just not take my meds during the intermission because it's like an easy fix, especially if they just fucking kick in this hard.
It's an extremely addressable thing.
Simply
just not take them during the show anymore.
Exactly. Like it's not a problem for me to do that. And all that stuff is like, that is what it is, right? Like it's not an issue that's going to plague the show again. Hopefully. But I think for the most part, like it really was just a once in a lifetime freak accident given the circumstances. And, I just felt bad about it. And again, this isn't a toaster pity party, but like you can ask Kaw, like I spent the past 6 days, like feeling the worst I've ever felt. Maybe like I was not okay after what happened. And after I realized like the depth of it, and it just sucked. Like for the day after, I like just didn't eat for the entire day. I was just like laying on the couch, just completely fucked up about it. I just thought, I was convinced that there were going to be like calls asking for me to leave the show. And like, I thought it was going to destroy everything that we've built up. I truly thought this was the end of my part in Null playing games. And so when Keith put up that announcement video, just saying like, hey, episode's being rolled back, and all of the comments were positive, that like affected me. That like made me feel weird because it was like the worst thing that has ever publicly happened to me, triggering all of my social anxieties that I have ever possibly had. It also turned out to be like one of the biggest moments, I think, in our community of people just being like, hey, we're here for the show and we like it, and we like missteps happen and that's fine. And in a way I feel oddly reaffirmed because you guys, the players at the table and Kaw really stood behind me, and that mattered to me a lot in that moment. Like not once did I ever feel like people were trying to punish me. I felt like we were all just trying to find a solution that like worked for everyone and with everyone's schedule. Yeah. But the comments really reaffirmed to me that like our fans like go fucking hard. Like they really like this show, and everyone seems to have a sense of humor and really appreciates just even when we go off the rails, people seem to be here for us. So, it was an accident, just a freak occurrence. We're gonna not have that happen again, hopefully, and we're just gonna focus on making just like the best show for you all possible.
Hell yeah.
So, that's what happened. That's the big thing of it. I'm doing okay. My body still really hurts from what happened, kind of. I really was feeling in pain the day after because I basically roofied myself. So some sort of interaction happened there. My back hurt really bad. My kidneys hurt, stuff like that. But for the most part, what happened was took my meds, interaction happened. I basically got white girl wasted and then woke up with the worst hangover I've ever had in my life. And I wasn't even drinking. So
stress fucks you up. Like it has so many weird side effects that are hard to identify where you just like, cause you don't sleep right and you can't like move or think right. And you just kind of like stop functioning for a while.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think it just felt very good for people to see people react to this in a positive way and to be like, no, like we're here for it. Like, don't worry about it. Someone left a comment that was like, it's good to exercise like your editing rights because like no project is perfect the first time or something like that in the comments. I just remember I read that and I was just like, it's incredible that people are giving us the grace to like make a mistake if we need to. Cause even if this was like a much worse occurrence and we needed to do something about it, or we needed to boot a player or something, like it's good to know that people are here to actually listen and understand the reasoning behind why things happen. And like, they also want what's best for the show. Ultimately. So yeah, it just felt very good for that. So I'm doing a lot better. I appreciate all the well wishes. I'm not like undergoing a health crisis or anything like that. I just really fucked myself up by accident in possibly.
It was just a really bad night.
Yeah. The most embarrassing, hilariously stupid, super bad tier way for it to possibly ever happen. But it's fine. It's fine. And I'm fine.
Yeah.
So
we're glad that you're doing better.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I think that's the main takeaway here is that we could do the show, but we need you here for it.
Yeah.
It's important to me that we all have fun doing this too. That was another thing that I was thinking about when we were debating trying to cut things down. And it was just sort of, to me, it was sort of like, I don't overly side about the professionalism too much, which is silly to say. I mean, but just because I feel like you guys have that on lockdown and I just show up to hang out and have fun. But to me, it was just sort of like, oh, even apart from the presentation of the show, how cohesive the narrative is, to me, from my perspective, it was like something clearly went wrong. The sort of idle banter that happened, definitely, like, we didn't address the elephant in the room in that moment. We were just kind of, I think I was trying to like keep it alive, being like, hey, we got some really amazing art.
Yeah,
and, like,
no, it was a really funny idle banter because like there's normally an energy to them, but also like the backbone of idle banter usually is Toaster kind of hosting. And in this case, Toaster seemingly literally passed out in real time because he stopped talking completely. So it was like we were taking turns prodding each other with topics, and then everyone was like, yeah. And then more silence. Like there was like no discussion happening. I'm like, oh, the energy's gone right now. Everyone's just kind of everyone's
just like standing around scratching their heads. That's idle banter.
It's like everyone's stunned because like we're just thinking about the one thing which we also don't want to talk about because we're aware of the fact that it's live and we don't know what happened or what to say about it, but like we know what went wrong in the show. And we can't talk about it until after the show. So we're just yeah, totally, man. I love dice.
It was truly pathetic in a way where that was like kind of what solidified my take on this for kind of like doing a redo, and even having this meeting now is I didn't want the last interaction that our viewers had to be like that. you know?
Yeah.
So like a part of this too was just not only to just explain what happened, but just to have the audience hear us talk to each other in a normal way again. You know, like it is important to me to have like a vibe reset before
just some
next
guys
episode, like
just hanging out.
And
I was pressing almost immediately to try to like re-record it because I was like either the entire second half or the part after the elevator or just something, because like I knew it didn't work and I knew that like it had to be changed on some level, but like I don't do it lightly because I understand that there's people that care a lot about like the spirit of the game and whatnot, and like the idea that it's role playing and there's consequences and you move forward and you deal with the stuff. So for background, for anyone that cares about that stuff and feels like it's like saves coming in that kind of way, we didn't do anything. And also we have no we also have like no failures to like undo, so it's not like we're like making if anything, we can, when we go back, we can fuck it up and make it have much worse outcomes, because we did not like fail any dice rolls. We didn't really face obstacles. We kind of just walked from point A to point B to set up the next cliffhanger while one character talked a lot. Like just tons of like kind of solo RP. And so it just wasn't really a session. Like it wasn't the game part of the game was the furthest from what happened. So there's not really anything to like nothing's really being lost, and we're not really like cheating in like that kind of sense.
In many ways, I hope we fuck it up, because adversity is way more interesting than just walking across the yard.
We're also like several broken ribs.
Yeah, and we're in danger of beating the story too fast.
I think that Ka probably has something up his sleeve.
I would not let Ka off the hook on this. He's gonna pull some shit.
It's really hard to tell.
We're find a big bag of money and you get to leave. I'm excited for that ending.
For all I know, you just shoot obviously telegraphed bad guy, and then I guess we could leave. But also it could be like, oh fuck, here's an entire wave of the Cape Escape monstrosity versions of the first opening trio characters or something. Well, don't give him the idea to do the thing that's already happened in this setting in every iteration so far.
Look.
Most cock now.
Wow. Writing that down.
Oh no, not Twisted Moorcock. We don't need this. We'll get Twitch banned.
Don't twist more cock.
Oh no. One of the things I wanted to mention too,
he's just
was
like grown across the walls and the bars of that entire room.
Nope. He's just like a legion. He's like a Castlevania legion of dicks.
Oh no.
That one boss of
it's like Annihilation.
The Silent Hill boss is just a bunch of walls.
Oh no. One of the things that Illusory Wall brought up to me, because Illusory was actually the person that reached out to me first about like, he called me. He was like, hey, can we talk? And I was like, yeah. And one of the things we kind of went back and forth on is just like, you know, in the original chat in our planning Discord, there was a, what are we going to do about this? Should we try to roll with it? Should we try to edit it? And like the thing Illusory and I went back and forth on is like, why would we put so much effort into trying to salvage a situation that isn't good for the show and also wasn't fun? And like, if this was a TV show production, or if this was a movie, you would just reshoot it. And like, that would take significantly longer than the 3 hours that we record a session for every week. And like, I think that is like a really strong perspective to have on this particular instance too. Yeah. Because like, you know, as Keith said just now, it's not even really like we're changing things or like save scumming. Because at least even on my part, I don't fucking remember what happened. Obviously, like I've seen like a recap of the footage because I played through it to get the worst of it and hate myself for a week. But I don't know how the fuck things are going to actually play out, right? So there is an element to this of like preserving what is the most interesting for us, right? And the most interesting choices, like Marty said, are just like adversity and like diegetic adversity, I should say. And more like interesting actual interactions with our characters, whether that means more skills to try and succeed so we can level them up or fail, more hijinks to get into, even if we end up at the same place at the end. There's so much can change in between then and now. And weirdly, in a way, whatever hindsight we might have can be used against us just as much as it can be a benefit to us. So I'm very excited to see what the fuck could possibly happen in this next session.
Resident Evil 4 remakes us.
Yeah.
Oh, I know what you think's going to happen, so...
Is they now you can play on those expectations.
That's RE1 remake.
Yeah, they move the dog one window down the corridor so you think you're safe. But
that's honestly...
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, too, like... I felt like there's like one of two ways kind of rebooting from where we left off after the break could go. It's like, one, because we covered such little ground, we could just get to where we left off like in 15 minutes. I don't think that's likely to happen. But even if that did, that would be fine because we would just get there more cohesively and move on. But if getting back, quote unquote, to where we were, if that's even what happens at all, who knows? It could go like very, very differently. But even if we wind up at the same place, but it takes like an hour to get there, then it'll be justified because that'll have meant that we did a bunch of different things and got there in a very different way. Part of what happened from my end of things is I rushed us there because I knew that would be a stopping point, and I was like trying to just like let's go, and I knew after like basically once we got to that set piece, I knew that once Ka revealed the thing, Ka would be like, okay, this is where we're taking a break.
There's some branching paths to get there.
Right, exactly. So it was very much just like me making choices that like were not in line with like how I would have actually played the game either. So it was very just like let's go here and wrap the session up.
There's literally an elevator that we have to split up to use.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be very fun and I'm excited. But anyway, that's enough talking just about like the fuck up of episode 8. I think everyone's briefed on that. Do we want to have an actual idle banter about how fucking cool episode 7 was
so
now?
Beck's back.
Hey, Beck's back. I think I tried to talk about this for half a second before I literally passed out live on stream last time, but
no, yeah, you were so excited that it was the entire intermission. I was like, okay, Toaster, we got to start the show, please. I can't let you get excited about Beck for 15 minutes in the intermission. We'll have less show.
Very stoked. It started to get crazy. But what happened in episode 7 is, we made our way through the labyrinth, through Javi's powers into the computer room that Keaton was able to hack. And it turned out to be weird other side organotech. We saw the Lotus pods from Dead Laws.
I love that.
That was crazy.
Was that how we were able to display video on a Apple II monitor? Because that shit's like 280 by 190.
Yeah, I mean, who knows, right? It's other side vision. I was half expecting it to be just a viewer's eyeball, like that pulls away from the screen. And eventually we get to an underground lab after the Lotus pods knock us out, and it's in there that we find Melvin. But the most exciting, the biggest moment, I think, for each of us was that we had flashbacks while we were all knocked out.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. We got guest art from everyone. I think Horrorbuns went first with art by Horrorbuns.
Yeah.
Does this count as nepotism?
It was so good.
It was very good.
It was fantastic.
Yeah. It was so much fun to see Dakota's like the inciting event of Dakota's whole arc like finally like happen live for us, right? Because it's been something that's been teased the entire season, but hadn't actually been demonstrated for us, right?
Yeah, and I like that it's still like unknown to actually anybody in the party except for probably Javier, because I don't know how much Dakota would have actually revealed, but enough to like get to the like point of like, oh no, what happened, like that was a real thing.
it was just such a big moment because like, especially when the card changed as well, it was like it just felt really dynamic. I feel like the production value of Cape Escape 2 is like we grew from like our weird ascended home game from Cape Escape 1 that we did to Dead Laws, which was like which is a huge jump in production quality and production cost. And then now here, an even bigger jump in production quality and production cost. It's just really wild, but it was so awesome to just like see what felt like almost like sequential like comic art in a lot of ways. Because I think that's technically the first time we've done panels quite like that, even compared to the Dead Laws flashbacks.
Yeah, I think so.
So that really stuck out to me at the time.
And the entire impetus behind that from a production standpoint is our artist was away at a convention for a week. So I pulled some strings with some of our regular contributors for fan art and participants in the campaign and commissioned some special flashback cards from them.
It turned out awesomely.
So good. Next up was Jet and Melvin, right?
That artwork was so good.
Yeah,
it was so good.
We got the Crimson Rabbit art of Jet and Melvin as kids in a corn maze, and I've already seen people posting about the fucking symbolism of all that. The kicker of doors, the breaker of walls, Jet coming to rescue his little husband. But that's such an amazing moment.
I really, really adored that. And the Crimson Rabbit art from season 1, the photo of Jet and Melvin on the beach was like such amazing fan art that I asked him if I could like ascend that to canon and bring it in as a photo.
Which
so like
immediately
being able to
introduced the question of timelines because there was a date on the photo.
Yeah. So
look at this photograph.
Which I might have said that date in the episode, but I don't know the timeline. I'm bad at that.
Well, that's just a feature of Jet.
Yeah.
He's based on my inability to obsess over my woobles. I don't have the lore Bible.
So this is an interesting question, but like, how much of Jet's past have you spoken to Ka about? Like, how much of this was taken from things that you wrote, and how much of this was Ka kind of freestyling?
I think I've literally never told Ka anything about Melvin and Jet that isn't in the story that I wrote.
So much of Jet's backstory is improv that comes up in the moment as we're playing. And I love it.
Some of the fun
I don't know what to expect.
Some of the fun is that I don't know what Jet's going to be hit with next week. Or whenever we encounter this character that I definitely have identified by name. But yeah, no, I made up stuff about Melvin for fun. Like I had the idea like he was this like this funny little fat kid that had like he struggled to like speak around his big stupid tusks that were growing in and everything, and he had had to do like speech therapy to figure that stuff out. But he was obsessing over like number go big, and like he was like building cairns and absurd things like that because he was always trying to like do something grand on some scale. So I was all like basically just foreshadowing his YouTuberness essentially, and also like various levels of him like practicing how to speak, and then which leads into his like there's the Melvin voice, but then there's his fucking YouTuber voice and so on, and just the really obnoxious weird affect that a lot of YouTubers adopt for their content and so on. But also things like then Ka will hit me back with versions of like, because I'll kind of just write scenes and then realize that I'm like subtextually leaning in on elements of how the characters were already working, and then Ka will do the same thing where he literally puts us like it's like he must almost be annoyed when I call out his subtext and just say what's happening in the narrative out loud, because fucking I'll be like, oh, I get it. We're in a labyrinth. Oh, get it. That's a minotaur. Oh, I get it. Melvin's the minotaur, and I'm like calling that out loud in the episode because I'm just having the realizations. But if you ignore my dumb call outs, the scene that he's crafted is that in the in the fade to black before Melvin, Ka perfectly set up this scene based on the fact that Jet's been the door kicker all season, but also he was that last season too when he had the chance to actually have a goal. But he put Jet in a labyrinth where the Minotaur was Melvin. But before we find out who the Minotaur is, which we all just intuitively picked up must exist before we even saw a creature, he then flashes back to a corn maze where Jet is door kicking the corn maze, where I get to say that Jet is door kicking the corn maze. And then in the middle of the fucking corn maze is Melvin, because he's the Minotaur in the current day, and it's like, motherfucker, that's so fucking clever. But also, I don't know how people I don't know how people think of things to write, because I'm like, I don't feel like it doesn't. It feels almost obvious, but also I would never think to write that scene that way, and it works. It's works so good, having the reveal be that he's like having me improvise the scene of pulling Melvin out of the corn maze and then flashing to our labyrinth where it's revealed that the Minotaur is Melvin, and now it's my goal to pull him out of that maze. That's great. I love it.
Perfect.
It was really effective in the moment. Like, a lot of people in the chat responded to it very, very positively immediately.
But also, we're the opposite. We're completely the opposite of how I assume Ka and Toaster talk daily, in like the form of like massive essays and so on.
This is where I get to say that I have probably written more of Jet's backstory than Pete has to Ka in chats with Ka. Not literally, but there, using that example of the Crimson Rabbit art, sharp-eyed viewers will notice that the date on it doesn't make any fucking sense. And let me tell you, as someone who is writing a story, quite a few stories actually, taking place in this setting and having to take care of the timeline, boy, did that spur a whole ton of conversations between me and Ka trying to figure out what the fuck to do with that.
Instead of just being like, whoops.
Yeah, no. Well, because it's out
Which
there,
is
right?
my mentality.
Why have a whoops when you can have a
Yeah, exactly. And this is actually... Yeah. Well, this is the thing is, right, like, I come from the Star Wars fandom of, like, they release a bad thing and then they release 37 shows that kind of make the bad thing better in retrospect. And, like, having to work in that constraint of, like, figuring out, okay, here are my harsh guidelines. We have a point A and we have a point B, and it seems impossible to bridge those two things. How do we do that? Is very exciting for me as a writer. And we'll get to more of that in a minute, but
it's so much easier to write when you have a goal too. Like, I don't know how to do anything when you're just like making up a story for funsies, and you're like, where does it go though? Where am I going? Like it's like how it's like everything I write is a prequel to a thing I already know happens in this universe. Mm-hmm. It's like I always. Yeah, I know where Argo starts out in the show, so I can write a prequel to Argo, and I know where Jet starts out, so I can write a prequel. Or in that case, I knew where the whole story had already gone, so I could write a prequel to that season. And then when I wrote the prequel to this season, I knew where Jet was at least going to be starting it, so I could just like, I have a destination to set up, so I don't have to like fucking wing it and just like have to invent stuff from scratch. And then that all gives Ka ammo. Whenever we write anything, Ka is like...
Well, speaking of that, the next thing that happened was Keaton's flashback, and there wasn't a specific art card for this one, but Ka did something really clever that I feel like a lot of people aren't going to pick up on if they haven't read the Keaton short story. But I wrote a short story about the month or so leading up to her coming to Cape Mendocino. And a big focus, a big reveal, which I do not think is really much of a reveal now that it happened in the episode, so I don't feel bad spoiling it. But a big reveal is that Keaton is an assumed identity. Her actual name is not, in fact, Keaton. It is not any of the other names that she used. She is a multitude of facades. She's been Tanya, Morgan, Danica, Jane. Most importantly, Jane. Who is Jane Figueroa was the big question. And that was represented very, very intelligently on the monitor as just my Fugi, just 100 times the Keaton talk sprite scrolling down the screen and glitching. And it's very cool, very, very cool to see such a smart distillation of this character and her kind of unspoken fears and her existence in this plot as an outsider who, like, whatever name she uses doesn't fucking matter to any of these people who's around her. They don't even know her. She introduces herself with this mysterious name, the Stag, and then says her name is, they can call her Keaton. And it's just like, who is this rando? And like, who are the people that actually care about this person? And what are they up to? And what's going on there? And what's her goal here? And that was just very exciting for me, very fulfilling for me. Just because Ka was reading that story, like in real time as I was writing it. That's kind of how our creative process works. And it was just very satisfying to see that play out on screen in a way, because, you know, it's really hard to portray a character with that kind of history and that kind of background when you only have like time in media res with the rest of the cast. So yeah, that was just like a big moment that I think went really understated, and I really liked it a lot.
All the video effects were fucking rad.
It was super cool. Yeah.
I didn't even give Ka the PSD for the fucking art I did. It still managed to like cut out the background and shit. It's great.
I have a free trial of DaVinci and I will use it.
I gotta buy you Studio, man. You would love all the Studio features.
Get on the Patreon so Ka can afford DaVinci Resolve.
Just less than the cost of a cup of coffee a day, you too can buy Ka DaVinci Pro.
In the arms of...
Our poor budget, our poor bottom line.
Bottom.
That leads to Snapper's flashback, which, boy howdy, talk about stealing the fucking show.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That was a fun one.
I have so many questions, and before we get to the biggest question of all, but my first question is, how much of Snapper's backstory have you worked on with Ka? Like, how much of this was not pre-planned, but like preordained in your conversations, and how much of this was just improv?
So what's interesting about it is I definitely gave Ka the information about how Snapper came to have the hat. We've had a little bit of back and forth on like what probably happened at Cape Karma, but we didn't sit down and flesh out the details. But I've been making an outline for what the story would look like, and Ka nailed it. Like the events that happened here are so in line with where I was going anyway that it's like perfect. I don't have to write that part. It's now been written. It's now in the show. Even better.
So my next question, and I think it's a question the audience also had, is, were you aware that Beck was the light at the top of the lighthouse this whole time?
Not a fucking clue. Not a fucking clue.
Yeah, so this part gets to the part that swept me off my fucking feet in the moment. So for a lot of you who watch, you might know I have been working on a Cape Escape. I don't like to call it a visual novel because it's not really a visual novel, but it is not in the furry visual novel sense. It's a novel that you happen to read in the form of a pseudo screenplay that has pictures and music. It's like that's a visual novel.
That's a visual novel, mama.
It's a
I don't know what to tell
novel.
you.
Yeah, it's a kinetic novel, actually. And it's a different branch of game design evolution that originates in Japan. But so I've been writing this for a while, and one of the big, and it feels so weird to spoil it, but to say it's spoiled, it's not really spoiled. But one of the big climactic moments in that was a character entering the lighthouse and meeting with the light at the top of the lighthouse. This character who's described in the script as a man on fire who smells of gun smoke and hunger. And it was very, very important for me to find a way to like pay homage to the ending of Dead Laws and where that character went without just rehashing his original story, right? Like if Beck just came back into Cape Escape, kicked down a door, shot someone, and was like, yeah, hey gang, we need to go out. Yeah, like that is just not going to be interesting, right? So I really wanted to evolve him and make him a bigger player in the meta plot. And being the light at the top of the lighthouse, this incredible fury blaze, and like turning his burning into something that is thematically more pure and good, and incorporating the lessons he learned in Dead Laws. This idea of, okay, the lighthouse, what came with the lighthouse was this fog that brought all of these creatures, but what is the purpose of a lighthouse? It shows you the way, it lights the path, it helps you see the dangers. So even if you can't avoid them, even if your ship shipwrecks against the coast, you know they're there and you can make a plan, and you can find your way out of the darkness because of that lighthouse, right? So having Beck be the burning man, the man on fire at top of the lighthouse, was this big thing I was saving for the visual novel. So the fucking snapshot of Snapper walking into the lighthouse, I'm panic messaging Ka. Are you doing what I think you're doing? Do I need to prepare Beck voice? Oh my God. So even what I said to Snapper in that moment was like improv from me, but it was also crazy improv for me because it was building off of things that I had written in a top secret, 70,000 word document that I just have with Ka, where Ka's like the only other person in the world who's seen it. So it was a really big moment. And I loved the idea of tying it to Snapper, because in a lot of ways, Snapper is weirdly similar to Beck. And I know that sounds crazy, but when you think about it from a theme writing perspective,
he did shoot like 3 people on his way in.
Yeah, he did shoot 3 people on the way in, and he ate
famously.
that poor fish woman in the lobby.
Yeah. Ripped out her throat with his bare teeth, as opposed to his dressed teeth.
What happened with Snapper is, he has this like unfinished business, right? Like there's this whole thing with his dad and the world and the rules that have been put upon him by his father, who won't tell him about all of these things that happen that have dominated his life. And so he sets out on a journey, like in sort of a type of rebellion, right? Of like, no, I'm going to find answers, and I'm going to find closure, and I'm going to find absolution. And I'm going to chase it to the end of the world. If you were to scrub the answers part of that out and just say, like, I'm going to get revenge, I'm going to chase it to the end of the world, I'm going to follow it to the way, you just get Beck. So it makes a lot of sense that this newly, I don't want to say redeemed Beck, but this newly ascended, more positively aligned version of him would encounter Snapper and give him a blessing. It makes so much thematic sense. And I'm so mad that Ka wrote it and I didn't, because it's really good. It's really good. And it would have been I would have loved to claim that as my own writing, but you can't win them all.
We don't really know if it's a blessing. It could just be a curse.
It could absolutely be a curse.
Well, I had a quick question. So Snapper has 20 occult. Is that like specifically because of that event? Is there more to it?
Yeah, almost entirely because of what he experienced in the lighthouse.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's great. And that's going to be Javier trying to, like, I mean, because he doesn't know about that, obviously, but the second he does, or if he's able to learn more about him, that's going to be like mind-blowing to him. And it completely changes everything, right? Because from my character's perspective, it's like, oh, he wants to know what happened to his dad. But then he's going to be like, wait a second, you saw some other crazy shit that I didn't see in the lighthouse? Like, what the fuck, man? Like, so,
that was my lighthouse.
That's
I'll talk about our lighthouse experiences once we get out of prison.
We'll bond.
There's going to be a new kinship. Yeah, exactly. Something to bond over.
And Keaton's going to be like, what the fuck lighthouse are you talking about, you nerds? We need to leave here. I'm a wanted fugitive.
I was debating having like one of the shards on that like broken apart CG, like being Javier experiencing like the lighthouse at the same time, like the two of them like displaced through time
everything everywhere all at once.
Experiencing it, yeah. But I decided I wanted to do the fake out with Javier of is this the thing he's remembering? Nope, I'm just baiting him into stabbing Dakota.
Well, that was fun too, because again, example that proves the rule. We have these flashbacks back to back to back to back with each other, and then Javi wakes up, and it's such a perfect example of like, oh yeah, Javi is fucking losing his mind. His sense of reality is going to be fucked. So is he going to understand if this is a dream or not? Is this a dream or not? Like, the audience doesn't know, the players don't know. It's like perfect Luda narrative, like synchronicity.
Yes, and I genuinely had no idea if it was a flashback or not. Like, I couldn't tell. And my performance in the improv in that moment was a little flat, I think, personally, because I was just like genuinely like, I'm gonna let Ka keep moving things after I respond with a sentence or two, because I'm just like, I don't know. But the thing that I was really happy with about it in the end, though, was just that. Well, yeah, that arrived extremely organically within character, right? Just because it was sort of like, oh, it's Knife Rat, and he's gonna stab the guys that he thinks are wronging him or whatever if he feels his life is in danger. But it's like, no. If it was a flashback, he wouldn't have done anything like that in the past, right? Because he always had a plan B. He knows he can tunnel, and no one else there knows he can do that. So if shit really hit the fan, he, despite being tortured and having all this fucked up stuff happen, it's like an addiction to him, right? That he develops his powers further. So he's willing to put up with the most fucked up shit to just sort of see what's happening there, what's going on. But he always had a plan B of just escaping. So having this moment where he's kind of like half awake and maybe he could get a drop on this guy. It's like, he wasn't going to take that opportunity. So I just played it out with that sort of logic. And then it was Dakota, and it's like, oh, hey man, happy to see you here. This rules.
I thought that was so.
Oh my god,
clever,
Dakota, hi.
Yeah, exactly. like this fucking dorks comic of just Dakota. Oh my god, hi. So good. And I think, yeah, like it just flows so perfectly into like the mind state that these characters are in. We got these flashbacks, and every single one of them blew the door open for like how they're actually thinking about what the fuck is going on, and like it really solidifies everything we've been building up to, even like unspoken. So Ka deserves like a real round of applause for that. Just incredible hat trick. There is one other thing I think is worth talking about this session, and it's the top 10 anime betrayals of all time. Ivan working for potatoes. How dare you?
He's thriving, and that's what's important.
It is really important to make money.
That is the one thing I think I did remember to talk about in like the previous Idle Banter, that we as the players are very happy that nothing happened to him. So I feel like Javier and Dakota would probably be like,
"Where's Ivan?"
Yeah. I feel like, he was our bro.
What did you fucking do to Ivan?
if he was like reporting on us, to other, Javier would not be a fan of that guy, I don't think. So that's kind of interesting.
Have to.
Ivan's the one that handed the walkie-talkie to Keaton, though.
Yeah.
Like first episode.
True. Sure.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's
second.
We don't really know.
And we put it to great use.
Miss Potatoes is up to. So
we got a gun out of it.
Did we, or was that just serendipity? I think part of the thing too with this is like, when you think about it, it's so clearly in Ivan's character. Ivan shows up, everyone was like, oh my god, we love Ivan, what a scamp. But then you're like, oh no, he's like a hustler in prison. Of course he's working for whoever will pay him.
That's scamp behavior for sure.
Yeah.
It is scamp behavior, 100% in line. So even when that happened I got to witness, I was so like, I felt betrayed. I was like, no, I've been had.
He's the only guy in that prison from that prison that still has all of his hands.
It's true.
Welcome to Ivan's Ivan.
And he's got all those watches.
Yeah.
It explains why the guards just let him fucking go.
That's
wherever he wants.
We should have been better friends with Ivan from the get-go. I feel like
it would have helped us out so much.
We all should have been nicer to Ivan.
He had to get out of there. Who was he going to sell to?
fuck, like the first
Shrinking
interaction
market.
I had with him, he asked me if I wanted anything else. I could have just said like key to get out.
I think it's fun.
He probably
We got
had one.
some more of that like potatoes lore though, because we got to revisit what happened to Sandals and the sort of the rewinding of time for him and how he is being forcibly navigated backwards, and he's experiencing hyper reality for the first time in a very sincere way. And then Ivan showed up, and I was like, all right, this has to be a comedy scene. There's no I was joking with Ka originally because I've known about who Ivan was as a character for a little bit before Cape Escape 2. Not that he was related to potatoes, but just I'd seen his character design and knew of him, and I was like, this guy has NoHo Hank energy. So if you've ever watched Barry, he is very much in my head. Is just like I think of him as NoHo Hank from Barry, the mobster that Barry is friends with. If you haven't watched Barry, that's a great show. Highly recommended watching that. But yeah, that's a very good touch point for that character. I think is very, very funny. So I just knew we had to lean into the comedy of it all, the absurdity of it all in that moment.
If you just watch Barry and Yellow Jackets and Twin Peaks, you'll just understand Toaster more.
Yeah, it's true.
Oh god, the picture I sent Toaster this weekend.
Oh, that was so good. Illusory Wall sent me a picture of all of the Twin Peaks VHSs organized so that it said Aphex Twin, which was very, very funny.
Share that.
It was very, very good.
Yeah, I'll post that in the group chat. Yeah, my brother did it. Apparently it's a meme, so like he saw it somewhere else. But yeah, I went
very
upstairs.
funny.
I stayed at his place this weekend, and I
can't
saw
get my
that.
friends to watch. I can't get my friends to watch Twin Peaks because the first episode is an hour long and a lot.
It's an hour-long soap opera.
People cry so much and so loud and for so long.
Just thinking about Laura's theme. It's playing in my head right now.
It's made funnier because I've already played Deadly Premonition, which also opens with a montage of everyone in town crying.
The way I'll pitch Twin Peaks to a lot of people is because like you'll hear everyone hype it up and say it's one of their favorite things, and yes, that's correct. It's one of my favorite pieces of media. But I would make the comparison to Star Trek, where it's like you love it because the highs are so fantastic and that it's something unique. But like a lot of the show like kind of sucks. It's like
there's a lot of high school theater production energy.
The show is just like a wild hot mess, which is part of the fun.
Very specifically too. Like that's David Lynch just being a freak, right?
Yeah. There's a lot behind it.
I'll finish season 2
especially
someday.
with Twin Peaks. The biggest thing with it is just it's like the most influential show ever made. And I know that people will say that about a lot of things. They're like, oh, The Wire is the most influential show, Breaking Bad, whatever. Twin Peaks literally created the prestige drama as we currently know it. And like most people have seen Twin Peaks in one form or another in the form of other media that references it. The very first time I watched Twin Peaks was in 2011. And the entire time I watched it, almost every scene, I was like, oh, this is where that comes from. And it's just that the whole way through, even during the bad parts, which is crazy. So it is a very good touch point.
To the general chat for anyone in Discord who wants to see. Again, I just walked up to my brother's like VH collection that he has upstairs and just like saw that like and just walked right into that like face first, and I was like, oh my god, it's incredible.
My weird thing about Twin Peaks is I always mistype it as Twink Pix.
Twink Pix.
Twink Pix.
Uh-huh.
Yep, and that's the only reason it's in your browser history.
Uh-huh.
I
think more shows need log ladies though.
It's true.
Agree. We need a log lady in this.
Yeah.
Let it be we need to find one for Cape Escape. I guess maybe it wouldn't be Madoska, but she's more of a Catherine Martell type. But
Madoska Magica.
But
it was the skunk rider.
Bertram Softbottom.
Yeah.
Who's the Leo of we need a
no Moorcock,
yeah.
Oh god.
All right, we're making references no one's gonna
was Leo the guy that just started barking at him?
No, that's James.
No, he's the murderer, right?
That's Bobby.
The murdery guy. He seems
the
murdery.
drug dealer.
No spoilers.
So
I don't
let's
know
talk
the
about-
answer yet. I'm just saying he seemed like the murderer. Like he's like
he had murder energy.
He's the guy in town to be the guy who seems like he's the murderer in any case that happens ever in that town.
Yeah.
Are you saying that all ponytail havers are murderers? That's fucked
No,
up.
people
It's
who do everything he does are just every scene he does in the entire season 1.
So what are some things that we think are going to happen moving forward? And what are some things that we want to happen for like arcs for our characters, plot threads that we want to see wrapped up or further unraveled to see where they go?
Well, I know personally for Javier, I won't say too much because it's just going to play out on Wednesday. But I did conceive of a new arc and direction and new goal for him that by the end of the season that I literally had not thought about before last session. And it makes sense very organically in the narrative. It involves like sort of getting closer to characters that might have been kind of distant to him. So yeah, there's something that's newly, freshly very important to him. And that's all I will say about that.
Excited to explore that.
I can't say mine out loud.
Jet's going to be at a loss a bit because he's had exactly one very clear goal and now he's reached that. And now he's just trapped in cosmic horror land and doesn't actually have any idea how to proceed.
Yep.
So
that'll be fun for him.
He was moving very quickly in one direction and he's there now. So now he's like the dog that caught the garbage truck. And he's like, what? Now what the fuck should I do?
Yeah.
You can't kick down Cthulhu's door.
Or can you?
Okay.
I don't recommend it, but I might do it.
I think for Keaton, she really needs to decide how she's going to, like, one, reconcile all this shit with her understanding of the world, but more appropriately than that, Keaton is many people, and she's kind of thrived in chaos and the lack of oversight that like provides, right? It's like this idea of like chaos being a ladder, and the more difficult it is to track your origin, the easier it is to be whoever you need to be, right? But she's been bouncing between all these identities and filling all these roles, and now she's finally in a circumstance where she's just like alone with people who don't know her but now need to depend on her. She can't extricate herself. She needs to figure out who the fuck she is and like actually commit to being that. Even if that means she needs to decide that she's Keaton, or if she's Jane, or if she is the person who ran away from home however long ago that I mentioned in the monologue. Like, whoever that is, she needs to really commit to it and dig into it. Because as of right now, she came in here kind of playing a role. Like, she's like, all right, I'm going to sneak in, I'm going to get everything I need and then sneak out. Easy done it. I'm the stag. I'm a hacker. I can do it. I'm unassuming. I'm going to walk with a purpose. And that didn't work for her. And maybe it would have under other circumstances, but she needs to realize like what is going on with her, and like, can she even really rely on herself? And is it okay to even kind of come to that now?
I haven't discussed this with you yet, but I actually did think about how Javier would interact with Keaton after the events of this, assuming we all get out of this alive.
Yeah.
It's very, I don't mind saying it because I don't think it's not too integral to anything, but this will sound very funny. Javier would immediately rat you out to Sandals, but also have your back.
Interesting.
because this makes total sense in Javier's head, and I think it's right because of how well he knows Sandals. I'm going to take a wild guess here, and you can see if Sandals would agree or not. I'm curious to see. This is my pitch. I'd be like, hey, she was like planning. She like, has distrust of billionaires, was planning on like, blackmailing you or like, backstabbing you in some way. Now she knows the stakes of everything that happened, and she's really fucking talented. So let's keep her on the payroll. This is what happened. And I think like Sandals like wouldn't be. Sandals has such like a bigger picture view that like he wouldn't press charges on her for doing something like that. Like
blackmail afterwards though.
Right, that's assuming Sandals is somewhere, like that everything's good. But if we're all out of this alive, that's what I picture happening. It's just like I don't think if Sandals learns everything about Keaton and what happened, if he listens to Javier's pitch being like, look, she's talented and she knows the stakes of this shit now, he'd be like, great, that's like one less person we have to convince about what the fuck is going on. Like,
yeah, well, I think that's like a really good point. This like idea of like, hey, Keaton investigated you. She cracked through your defenses, figured out who you were, was gonna blackmail you, and then survived this event. Like, she came here of her own volition. This happened, and she's still here. Keaton doesn't need to blackmail Sandals anymore because Keaton's got a job, baby. Give me that, Dosh. Like, that's
100% what I was thinking. Yep,
that's definitely, and I think that is something that she might even lean into, right? Like, granted, she'd probably like to have benefits and you know, a health
we'll just
plan.
Have to see
and
how
things
many
like that.
hands and eyes everyone has in a couple of weeks.
Exactly. Yeah.
And how many of them are alive?
I feel like Jet's natural endpoint, not endpoint, but like natural, like where he'd end up without interruption, given this scenario, is he's gonna end up like Beetlejuice sandworming himself. He's just gonna fucking go out the door probably, and have a bad awakening with that. But I imagine that there's like one or two big things that would get in his way before he actually makes it there. But he's not smart enough to come up with a better solution than to just go out and find out the hard way why you don't do that.
Here's hoping Melvin can convince him to calm down, maybe. And that would be a big character arc for Melvin to finally be the one who's actually somehow.
I'm stoked we have Melvin with us, by the way. I just want to drop that. Like, I'm so stoked. He's yeah.
Just need to build a bigger door.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to see Melvin enter combat and protect Jet for once.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's like part of the reason we got to build him back up to have confidence, because we need him. Need him.
That's what I feel like we're past the point of Jet being completely unreasonable all the time because of his laser targeted focus that he can't rely on anymore. But for a while there, I was wondering if there's going to be a situation where the party felt like they needed to subdue Jet and that Dakota might try to hypnotize him. And I sincerely don't know what that would do because of what's up with Jet, where I'm like, hang on a minute.
The thing about hypnotism is
it gets you drunk, apparently.
It's just really effective. Like, you got, like, the older the watch, the more powerful it is.
I just don't
know that.
The scary thing about hypnotizing Jet is that I don't know what he can do because he doesn't know what he can do.
Look into my eyes.
Something's up with Jet.
I sure wonder. Probably nothing.
It's probably nothing.
I'm sure it's fine.
I
think we'll have a good opportunity to explore that next session.
No more parents.
I'm excited for Snapper to explain where he's
Emancipation.
been.
Yeah, I'm really curious, like, how, because in Snapper's flashback. Sorry, I'm eating tostadas and they're really spicy. So if I start hiccuping, that's why. Senor Lechuga 718, baby.
Hell yeah.
Anyway,
High five.
this stuff is good. But in that moment, I improvised Beck saying, "It's all on you now, kid. Attaboy." And it's like this idea of like maybe not passing the torch, but like kind of imbuing this character with like a mission, right? Like, walk the path, find your conclusion, go to the end. And as far as we know for the season, and Marty, you can chime in on this for sure, like, Snapper's whole goal, at least so far, has been to find Mr. Man and understand what happened to him. And as far as I'm concerned, you kind of did that. So, like, what happens when you actually, activate the purpose that a divine being has blessed you with? That is what I want to know.
Really good question. And he does have an arc that goes beyond finding Melvin. It's just a matter of how relevant it's going to be to the rest of these characters.
Yeah, for sure.
There's definitely a whole chunk of Snapper's backstory that would have played a lot more relevance if Sandals was here. But without Sandals here, I'm not sure we're even going to touch it.
I mean, I think there's the contact building between Keaton and Javi of having known Sandals and it kind of ostensibly working with him, that we could also bridge with Snapper here, and this idea of like, wait a minute, this circles, because everything right now, I don't think it's unfair to say this big bombshell of this last episode is that everything here is swirling around Snapper in a way that no one was expecting. And like, you're the confluence of so many of these things, right? And like, I think it would make sense for the narrative to hone in and narrow in on that, because there's a very big interesting kind of web of themes that are being built around you. But Snapper, for all of the players and for the characters, is still kind of the biggest mystery, even over Keaton. Keaton's a random nobody. Snapper, though, what's his deal? And I think that's exciting, is looking into whatever the fuck is going to come of that, and whatever's going to come up of his weird, I don't want to say partnership, but like the vision that he had with Beck. And that is just like, even for me, the person who wrote and played Beck, is like so exciting. Like, I'm wondering what that could even mean.
I just had this mental image of like just it going the wrong way of there's this very funny Make Some Noise skit with like Brennan Lee Mulligan like being this god, being like, you are the chosen one.
Oh yes.
Yeah. And then like
imagine talking to the kid in his bedroom about being the chosen one.
Snapper being like, oh gee, I always thought I was gonna be the chosen one, and just like going off, and then it's like Beck
actually give that back.
Give that back. Never mind, we gotta find someone else.
Oh man, what a joy. I feel like no matter how it goes, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be goofy and fun.
The energy's wrong. Don't like that.
Yeah, you sorry kid, you just didn't pass the vibe check.
Just the immediate reaction of like fucking like Polka Awesome 2 when he immediately wants to take the badge back. They just gave it to Ash for being a good boy. You're like, oh man, you have to brag. Don't show people.
Well, I think unless we have more to talk about, I think that covers episode 7. We had a pretty long idle banter for you guys this week to make up for the fact that we couldn't record it the first time.
Yeah.
Tune in for the stream in 2 days, or in 1 day if you're watching the edited video of this video. Tune in on Wednesday for the stream, or Thursday for the video. Someone will die.
Wednesday, September 10th for the live. Wednesday, September 10th, 2024 is when we will be live next for our next session. As always, thank you very much, everyone. We love our audience.
11th.
September 11th?
Yes. Tomorrow's the 10th.
Yeah. Wednesday, September 11th. 9/11. A date that nothing else has ever happened on.
Get ready to see
it's fine.
Tune in for the worst thing that's ever happened on 9/11.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. We love and appreciate all of you. Thank you for your patience with us as we figured out what the fuck to do with this week. And yeah, we'll see you then.
Have a good night, everyone.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.